They can't be stopped. Twins take down Boston for their 11th in a row. We're breaking it all down. What's coming up next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Twins POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man in the flesh, CJ Baumgartner. He's on X, at Baum, CJ30, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. And CJ, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Woo! All right, man. Twins coming in on their first 10-game win streak since 2008. Now they get to kind of buckle in for the start of this 7-game homestand, 3 versus Boston, and then 4 versus Seattle. So, game 1, versus the Red Sox tonight. You got Chris Paddock on the mound. In fact, both pitchers in this one We're locked in the zone tonight. Up until the 7th inning, we really had ourselves a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel on our hands. Paddock, a.k.a. the sheriff out there, wheeling and dealing. 6 strong, 2 hits, no earned runs, 6 Ks, just 1 walk. Meanwhile, his opponent, Hawk, on the mound for Boston. That dude can sling it too, man. That's the first time I've sat down all year and just watched this guy from start to finish. Tough to get the barrel on the ball tonight. He went 6 1/3, I believe. 6 hits, 4 earned, 5 Ks, 2 walks. So the story up into the 7th was the Twins were only up 1-0. Again, back and forth pitchers duel. Julian had an RBI in the 3rd. That was really at that point your only run scored. Bottom 7, Twins get the bases juiced. Julian at the plate. He forced a time clock violation, kind of a goofy play. It was a ball 4 that walked in a run. Willie Castro had a sacrifice RBI. And then last but not least, Jeffers, who else? He hits a 2 RBI double, and the Twins just bust this thing wide open in the 7th. They take a 5-0 lead. Sox add 2 in the 8th. Duran comes in the 9th, ring him up, sit him down. You know the rest. Twins win it 5-2, and the streak continues, man. Your Minnesota Twins have now won 11 games in a row. What a time to be alive, CJ. Give us your biggest takeaways, 8 topics, first and foremost, just to kick this thing off.
11 in a row.
What are you
11 in a row.
Crazy.
I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a team that's locked in. The vibes are immaculate. I mean, there's everything about Twins baseball is going right. I mentioned this before we started the show. Like, everything is just going their way, it feels like. And especially at the beginning of the year when it felt like the opposite, things are swinging back in the right direction. And Twins baseball, not only are they winning games, they are fun to watch.
Yeah, so let's start back at the top because up until the 6th inning, I'm not going to lie, I didn't get to watch 1 second of this one thanks to the whole Bally Sports Comcast fiasco. Thanks a lot, Polads. Figure it out, will ya? I digress. I finally realized Fubo has a 7-day trial. So I sign up on the fly, okay? I get logged in. I'm back online. Top of the 6th. It's 1-0. Okay, I'm like, all right, we got a good game going on here. So I know you got DirecTV. Fill me in up to that point because I got to imagine, I'm sitting there thinking in my head, the score only being 1-0 at the time, 6 innings deep, there had to be a few defensive gems or something along the way for both teams. Or was it just a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel? I saw on ESPN Gamecast that Boston had runners on 2nd and 3rd in the 1st inning with no outs. How the heck did they even get out of that jam? Do you remember?
So the jam started by a Carlos Correa error of all things.
Oh, wow.
He got it kind of in the ball. The ball got in the glove. He didn't quite get that second hand up there, just rolled up the arm. Runner gets on. Devers hits a double into the gap, but Correa, with the cannon arm we talk about, held up the runner at 3rd, which kept that guy from scoring. If almost anybody other than Carlos Correa cuts off that ball, they're testing it and they're trying to go home. And then Paddock just does a good job of gets a strikeout when he needs it, gets a weak pop, and then gets a ground out. Ed Julian didn't make any flashy plays, but had about 8 to 10 baseballs hitting his direction over the first few innings and just did a good job of it. And like you said, there wasn't any like spectacular defensive play. It was just Chris Paddock in total control. It had to be his best start of the year. If not, it's top 2, top 3. He was as locked in as I've seen him in a long time. 5+ strikeouts. Just no real, after that Devers double, there was no real solid contact off of him, and he was just in control for his entire day.
Yeah, we'll talk on Paddock a little bit later here in a few minutes. But yeah, you're right. When I turned it on, again, first thing I see, Paddock, 6th inning, strikes out the side. 1, 2, 3, strikes out the side in the 6th inning. So he was still throwing some flames, still throwing some gas in the 6th inning. He ends up getting pulled by Griffin Jacks, who also struck out the side in the 7th inning. So those are the first 2 pitching sequences I saw in the 6th and 7th inning. Both pitchers strike out every batter. It was a masterclass from Twins pitchers tonight, pretty much all the way around, top to bottom. 11 in a row, dude. Let's just take a step back, take a deep breath. How in the world did we get here, man? I know we've been kind of talking about it, game by game up to this point, but I mean, like, what's been more impressive? What's been the catalyst to this turnaround? When you think about how it started to where we're at now, the pitching or the hitting finally heating up, which one's kind of been the identity of the Twins during this streak, if you had to pick one?
I mean, it's simple to say, but they just started hitting. I think that was you win games when you score more runs than the other team. Big if true. And they've been doing a lot of that the last week and a half to 2 weeks. And that's really what's been the big thing. The pitching has been good. Hasn't been as spectacular as a year ago at this time, but it's been getting the job done. The bullpen has been in a really good spot. And when the Twins offense, even though they were only up 1-0 early, the fact that they scored that run in the first 3 innings just is huge, because then Chris Paddock, he's got that 1-run lead to work with. He doesn't feel like he has to be 100% perfect to get that run support early instead of a 0-0 game, and you get that run in the 6th or 7th inning. It just is different. There's no way to quantify it. It just kind of is for your starting pitcher. The fact that they got that early when Boston didn't. Boston had opportunities early and they couldn't get that run home. When the Twins did early, they got it to get the 1-0 lead, and then they hang that crooked number up in the 7th inning to kind of push them away. It's been the bats. This is one where the Twins early in the season could only muster that 1 run and end up losing it. But the fact that their offense is scoring not just 3 runs a game, but 4+ runs a game these last couple weeks has been the reason why they're winning.
A night and day turnaround, man. Just polar opposite from what we got from this lineup those first 3.5 weeks for sure. And speaking of the bats too, it's like, okay, we obviously give a lot of love to guys like Jeffers. Correa's back now. He's going to start heating up again. Kirilloff, Larnach, Julian, of course. Willie Castro's got a 10-game hit streak, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Or is it 11?
I believe it's 9.
Oh, it's 9. Okay, a 9-game hit streak. Okay.
Still impressive.
But how great has that guy been, though? Again, a guy that kind of flies on the radar a little bit, but not just at the plate, being that, versatile chess piece for Rocko defensively, being able to play multiple spots, and now taking over in center field for Byron Buxton, too. He's really been kind of one of the unsung heroes, I feel like, that deserves a little bit more love and attention, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's not just that he's not just slapping singles either. He ripped a double today. He had a triple in the last game. He's been a guy that's been getting extra base hits as well. And when Willie Castro, we saw it last year, when he's on a heater, he's really, really fun to watch. He can steal some bases. He's active on the base paths. Like you talked about, can play a lot of different positions on defense, which is how he even made the Twins roster a year ago in the first place, before we kind of got the Castro chaos, as people call it on Twitter. But just that guy's important because of that versatility, and he's going to get an opportunity to keep having his name in the lineup with Buxton going on the IL. So, right now, Willie Castro is in the middle of a hot stretch, and just keep riding that hot hand.
I apologize if I missed any news today. I know Buxton was getting that MRI today. Any word or any latest on that, what he might be dealing with?
So basically, he's going on the 10-day IL because of the knee, and the Twins basically are doing it. What it sounds like is as a precautionary, like not that he needs to be out, but had a scare, knee's a little banged up. Let's take 10 days and a breather. We don't. This
is the Buxton protocol at this point,
right? Exactly. So Austin Martin got called up in his place. The other thing is that Brock Stewart also got put on the injured list, and Jorge Alcala got called up today as well. And I put this out on Twitter before the game. It's that gif of the monkey's paw. And it's everybody talking about how they wanted Austin Martin and Jorge Alcala back up in the majors. And
right.
You got your wish. It just not the circumstances that anybody wanted to have, but they're back up. Austin Martin pinch ran a little bit today. Jorge Alo didn't make an appearance, but yeah, I mean, those two guys are up for the Twins, and it's next man up right now.
Next man up, again, maybe not the order or the fashion in which you wanted those guys back and those names back up here, like you mentioned, but man, just to have that depth, to be able to lose two guys like that and still be able to not skip a beat for the most part, boy, that feels really good and a nice luxury for this team right now. Back to Paddock a little bit. Again, 6 masterclass innings, throws a 2-hitter, 6 Ks, no earned runs, most importantly, does it on just 83 pitches. Was really hoping he'd get, be able to throw that 7th inning, but I know better. I know Rocko, I know better. This was his best outing of the year, though, was it not? And just, I guess, your overall thoughts on his outing and what an outing like that tonight does for a guy's confidence and just having him in the middle of this rotation now.
Well, I mean, the confidence is key because Morno mentioned it a couple times on the broadcast. Paddock is a guy who, kind of like Joe Ryan, makes his living in the higher part of the strike zone, throwing those fastballs. When you're locked in, you're getting those pitches high. He was getting Boston to chase on pitches that were above the letters. You got that thing going. And when you're not in the right headspace, you're nibbling, or sometimes that pitch gets a little belt high and then it ends up in the seats. And that's when Paddock isn't pitching well, gets a little homer happy. But when he can locate that pitch high, he can go really well. And at the end of his start, he wasn't skipping a beat. I mean, he was able to turn back and notch 96 on that final strikeout. For a guy's confidence, it's huge. It's Chris Paddock's best start of the season in my eyes. And especially on the back end of the rotation, bullpen, he had the off day, but towards the end of that Chicago series, a little bit depleted with some shorter starts from Ober and from Simeon Woods Richardson. So now you get to turn him back to the front of the rotation after 6 strong innings from Paddock. It just kind of gives everybody that little juice. It's a great kind of tone setter for this homestand where you're playing a team above 500 in Boston and a team above 500 in Seattle.
Yeah, to have Paddock go out and perform like he did, have that kind of outing like he did tonight. And then if you're Boston, if you're any opposing team, now you got to wake up tomorrow and you're going against Pablo and then Joe Ryan in the games 2 and 3. That's just, that's devastating for your psyche right there. Rocko Report time. Favorite, least favorite move, decision, whatever it may be from today's game. Game 1 versus Boston, the Rocko Report, it says what?
Well, I think it says, first of all, not an incomplete grade, but I think one that needs to be put up there is no Brock Stewart. Means Caleb Thielbar gets a little bit more high leverage innings. It feels like the Twins have really been leaning on him lately, and I'm a big Thielbar guy. I don't want to say overused, but it feels like they are really leaning into him lately because they kind of don't really have a choice with some of those high leverage innings. He gave up the double, the 2-run double, although he inherited those runners on base. It's going to, I'll give Rocko a solid B today, I think. Overall, the move to go to Jax for the 7th, I think if it's not a 1-0 game, I think Rocko probably does let Paddock go out there and get the 7th, but it was a 1-0 game. You bring in your stud number 2 reliever in Griffin Jax. He throws a shutout 7th inning, and why that's important is the game stayed 1-0. The Twins were able to put a 4-run spot in the bottom half of the inning, and then you could kind of, at least they attempted to give their bullpen a little bit of a break at the top half before Duran had to go back in. So overall, I'd say a solid B. Not the greatest effort, but it's a lot of nitpicks today. There's nothing overly major to complain about.
Well said. All right, plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, we got our nerdy stat of the day coming up, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what also keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Talking superchargers, roof racks, eBay Motors has it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Check this out. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I know we talked about the flurry of roster moves a few nights ago. Correa coming back, Duran coming back, a couple guys getting sent down. You already mentioned it at the top. Alcala's back. Okay, so even more help, though, to, what's already been a pretty strong unit back there in the pen. What's his addition, I guess, mean for this bullpen, and what's he bring to the table, too, as far as, his role, his biggest strengths, and everything else from what you know?
Well, the way that the Twins used Jorge Alo when he first, to begin the season, was they used him in a multi-inning duty. Just kind of, they needed somebody to fill that role. And they used him in a lot of different multi-inning appearances early, which is why they sent him down. He didn't earn a demotion. They just needed somebody who could throw innings for them. They sent him down to St. Paul. He pitched right away, which was odd, but then he, I believe if I read that right, did not really have a lot of other starts. Maybe he appeared 2 other times in the last couple weeks. So they really did make an effort to kind of rest Alcala and get him back up to shape. When he's on, he's a guy that, again, can throw that mid to upper 90s, can get a little bit of movement on there. As long as he's finding the strike zone, that guy is, it feels like every year for the last 4 years, everybody's like, is this finally the year Jorge Alcala breaks out? And it looks like this is finally the year where we're seeing this guy start to hopefully be a mainstay in the major league bullpen.
All right, nerdy stat of the day time. We always love a crazy stat or analytic, whatever you got. We're all ears. Lay it on us.
So the Twins, I saw this stat. I'm going to steal it from the Bally broadcast, but I think it's important to mention, is they're plus 42 on their run differential past the 7th inning.
Wow.
Which is such a, it's the most in Major League Baseball, which they're an offense that come late in the game, and playing the White Sox and the Angels bullpens will certainly help that with the kind of the last few games. But I think what it shows is Rocko talked early in the season a lot about making adjustments. That was something he used a lot in the post-game statements when they'd lose and the lineup would feel lifeless. It's, that first time you go up, you have a game plan, maybe it's not working, or the pitcher is coming at something you didn't expect. Okay, that's fine. Make your adjustments, and that second and third time you get up to the plate, be able to do that. And they weren't quite doing that. And the fact that they have the plus 42 run differential, and a lot of it has come in the last couple of weeks, it shows that they are making those adjustments and that they're scoring runs late in games. And that's always what you want to have. Now, it could also mean that your offense isn't scoring as much, you're kind of using it all late in the game, but it's just factoring in, runs scored after the 7th inning. So really, it doesn't have much to do with not scoring early. It's just a good testament that when this lineup is on, that they're able to score runs, hence the 4-run 7th inning, which helped put the game out of reach late.
And you probably don't get to that kind of gaudy number, plus 42, and be number 1 in the MLB in that ranking, in that statistic, without your bullpen, right? Doing the job that they've done as well, too, right?
Right, exactly. It helps out. You can let that run differential pile up when your bullpen is lights out. And I know they gave up a couple runs today, but still, they've been a little shaky over the last week, but relatively speaking, they haven't had blowups. They've had little missteps here and there, which your bullpen is never going to be perfect. So some people could say it's falling apart. I wouldn't go that far. I'd say, there's going to be a little bit of, you're going to have some missteps along the way, but the fact that no reliever, and especially no high leverage reliever, has really had any blow up appearance where they come in and just completely unravel a game. That happened a little bit last year, especially early in the season when there wasn't a ton of room for error. And this year, they've done just such a good job of either keeping the Twins in the game late or holding on to those late game leads.
All right, don't go anywhere. We got to preview game 2 now versus Boston tomorrow afternoon. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monopoly Go. Now, I've been told I'm the competitive one in the household, okay? I'm the guy who's always trying to kick things up a notch, create some friendly competition, if you will, and that's exactly why Monopoly Go is perfect, and not just for me, but over 150 million other people that have already downloaded it. It's the new latest and greatest twist on the classic Monopoly we all love and remember, and now you can play on not just one board, but hundreds of Monopoly boards, all with different crazy locations, helping you build up amazing new cities that bring you big money. And the best part, without a doubt, is messing with your friends and family. Charge them rent on all the iconic properties, and you can even steal their vaults of cash, or you can team up with friends and earn big rewards. So what are you waiting for? Get in the game, play with all your family and friends. Download Monopoly Go for free at the App Store and Google Play. All right, buddy, you know what's fun? You go online, You pull up the standings on ESPN or CBS, pick your flavor, whatever it is, and you see the Twins' last 10 games, that statistic that they show for all 32 teams. You see that, and you see a big 10-0 in their last 10 print right next to the Minnesota Twins. Doesn't get any better than that. Something that you just don't get to see very often, if at all, right? So they make it 11 in a row tonight. They go for lucky number 12 tomorrow. Pablo Lopez on the mound. What's the scouting report look like, man? What are you looking for the most in this one? And knowing Pablo, too, he really hasn't had his A-plus stuff that we're used to the last few outings. Is this the game maybe he finally has a big bounce back, pitching at home tomorrow in front of the home crowd?
I mean, that's the hope with Pablo Lopez, because like you said, he has been kind of shaky in the last couple starts, but against the Angels, he had a good first 4 innings. Things just kind of started to unravel late.
Yeah.
So the hope is that, he's just had to work on something. It was the second time through the lineup they made an adjustment. Pablo makes the counter adjustment. The thing is it depends on, I don't know what the forecast looks like. Pablo's not necessarily I don't want to say cold weather pitcher, but the start against Chicago is kind of gross outside. So I don't know. I feel like Pablo's he's set to have a good start. He's set to have a good bounce back start. Your ace doesn't have 3 bad starts in a row. You have a couple fluky, 3 establishes a pattern. So I'm not too concerned yet. I think overall, when you look at Pablo Lopez, the Twins are going to need him to pitch a little bit deeper. And the Twins are going to hopefully need him to get a lead bigger than 3, just because you did burn Griffin Jacks today, you did burn Duran today, and you use Thielbar. You don't have a ton of other super high leverage guys that are ready to go. I mean, you can go a couple on back-to-back days, but then you completely take them out for Sunday. So this is going to be one of Pablo needs to go deep and hold them down, not just to get the Twins a win, but just also to make sure that bullpen is ready to go, not only for game 3 of the series, but you also do have a 4-game stretch with Seattle coming up where you don't necessarily want to burn the bullpen 2 days after you just had an off day.
And to your point, too, if you remember his last outing, you're right. The first 4 innings, man, were Pablo's A-plus stuff. He was lights out, dude. And then I get it. This is baseball. Call it, unlucky or whatever you want. But like 1 pitch, 3-run home run. That's it. That's the difference right there. All of a sudden, your stat line gets blown up. All of a sudden, you get pulled the next inning. And things just the next morning in the box score just don't feel the same as again, how good he actually did pitch the majority of that outing. But again, that's baseball. Hopefully he can get that just complete from start to finish outing tomorrow at 1:10. If I told you in March that on May 3rd, the Twins would have an 11-game win streak and they'd still be tied for 3rd place in the Central, you'd say what? What's your first thought?
Something went really wrong in the first
what
3
happened?
weeks.
I know we keep joking about it, but man, it's just crazy. And again, it's not just things went weird and pear-shaped for the Twins at the beginning of the year, but the Central, man, the Central's been goofy as well. And some of these teams just won't lose. 2008 was the last time we've seen a streak like this, correct? 11 games, 2008. Was that the last time from your memory?
So 10 games was in 2008. Now 11 games was 2006. So now they've charted from the 08 team to the 06 team that everybody and myself really looks on fondly. And, kind of the same thing when you look at the 06 Twins. They didn't get off to a great start either. And Morneau mentioned that when the Twins are in the middle of their funk is, we didn't necessarily have a great start either. And we were just a good enough team and were able to make up that difference. And the Twins have been able to make up that difference. And if you look at FanGraphs, the Twins actually, even though I know they just bumped up into 3rd place, but even though they're still a couple games back of the Guardians, they have the highest odds not only to make the playoffs, but to win the division out of all these other teams.
Anything magical stick out? I know you were a young pup back in this, era, but whether it's the 08 team or the 06 team, anything that always sticks out to you during that era of Twins baseball?
I mean, the Metrodome has got to just be like, it's just kind of infused in my brain because not only was it that, but it was like a certain style of baseball. Moving into Target Field, they had a little bit of it, but they kind of started to usher in to where their style of baseball didn't necessarily compute with where baseball was going. But when you looked at Guardy Ball in the early 2000s Twins and, the Piranhas, guys that were just, guys that were just kind of grinders, you were bunting.
Alexi Casilla.
It was Denard Span gets a walk. Casilla's going to bunt him over. He's going to steal second. You bunt him over to third.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe Mauer's going to hit him home. All that stuff. Like
the glory days, man.
the glory days. Yeah.
Even if they don't win tomorrow, let's just call it out right now. Let's reverse jinx it right now. Even if they don't win tomorrow, are you comfortable? Are you confident enough in this team that they can at least keep the winning momentum, the kind of winning vibe around this clubhouse up from here on out? Or I guess, what's your biggest worry as far as them potentially regressing back to the mean again, if there was one?
Well, I think it just depends on the sausage that they get after this one. I think Jeffers said once the winning streak ends, they're going to get a different one and they're going to toss that one out. So if all the luck really was the sausage, I think that's going to be my biggest concern because I think overall, baseball is such a long season and the Twins had a rough stretch early in the year and they didn't let it bury them. They were able to overcome it. But also, teams typically let themselves know if they're good or not over the course of a long season. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the Twins have gotten themselves back on track, kind of, like you talked about, they're at this record. And I think we all expected them to be somewhere in this vicinity at this point in the season, just not the road to get there, maybe looking as good as or bad, a lot more twists and turns. So I think overall, there's nothing that would really scare me in one loss to think that everything's going to come crashing down on this team because I think they are a talented baseball team. They had a rough start to the year. They dug themselves out of that hole, and they've shown us that they're a good baseball team. I think I mentioned this on the last show, but look at the 2013, the 2014 Twins. They'd have like a nice April, early part of May, and you go, okay, maybe they'll be a good team this year, and then all of a sudden they lose 90 games. So
right.
It's a long season.
Yeah. It's a long season. It's a gauntlet. That's baseball for sure. That's why we love it. And like we talked about as well, when they were on, game 8 in a row, game 9 in a row, if it was just one or two studs just carrying the team, then it's like, okay, this just doesn't feel like this is going to carry over into the long stretch of the season. You just can't have that kind of top heavy roster or lineup, whatever it may be. Everybody's doing it, man. Everybody's contributing top to bottom. And despite some big injuries, they keep winning. And now they're getting some of these big names back. I mean, Rice Lewis should be back sooner than later. Big picture, you would think. You just got Correa back. You got Duran back now. I know Buxton's out. But again, I mean, people, I've loved what, not even just Willie Castro, but guys like Austin Martin have done in the meantime the last couple of weeks as well. I mean, if anything, it feels like they should keep playing their best baseball. And dare I say, I don't know, maybe even get any, better on paper anyways. That's just kind of how it feels anyways. Last one, and then we'll get out of here. I just read earlier this afternoon, you have a really cool piece posted up on Zone Coverage MN about the Twins having kind of this dream catcher tandem now with Jeffers and Vasquez. Can you give us the quick snapshot kind of summary and how important those two have really been for their success back there?
It's been huge. And I talk about in the piece how the Twins under Falvey handled their catching situation differently. So obviously when you had Joe Mauer, you play him 90% of the time because he's Joe Mauer. Right. But, once you've gotten into this era where, catchers, they're not necessarily known as your better hitters on the team, but the Twins have found a way, whether it was Jason Castro, whether it was Mitch Garver, whether it's Ryan Jeffers or anybody in between, that if you give them a lot of rest, they're going to hit a lot better when they're not expected to catch 5 days out of the week. And then you give them the off day on Sundays, like the Twins would do with Mauer. And then they give Redmond the start on Sunday. That's just not exactly how they do it. They kind of like to split it in a 60-40 kind of setting. And it really has helped Jeffers because he's one of the top 3 catchers, hitting catchers in all of baseball. And if not, I think he leads all catchers in OPS. So he's just been a great hitter. He's been asked to DH a lot this year, but he's not on his legs as much catching. It's allowed him to really hit. Vasquez is still one of the top catchers, like fielding catchers, whether it's framing, throwing runners out. We've seen that this year. And the Twins really have their dream tandem spot because Jeffers hits so well that his fielding deficiencies get kind of masked. And Vasquez is such a great fielder that even though he doesn't hit at the same clip as Garver, he's still useful to the team and they kind of balance each other out in a way. I mean, it's really great. No matter who the Twins put behind the plate, they just put themselves in such a good position.
It's a great situation to be in, and it was a great article and great breakdown. Everybody listening has to go check that out as well, up on zonecoverage.mn.com. Well done, my man. As always a lot of fun talking Twins with you. Twins win their 11th in a row for the first time since 2006. Game 2 tomorrow. Pablo Lopez on the mound for that one. Afternoon game, first pitch, 1:10 p.m. Central Standard Time start. Again, as always, Huge shout out to everybody that joined us on the stream. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place right here to break it all down. And quick reminder, go check out all of CJ's work on X at BombCJ30. And again, all the work he's ripping up over there at ZoneCoverageMN.com. And you can check me out on the T-Wolves postcast with my guy Jack Borman, Game 1 versus Denver tomorrow night, right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. And if it's not too much trouble, go like, go subscribe. Help us get to 8,000 subscribers now. That's always very, very appreciated. Not to mention, you can always find all our Locked On Sports Minnesota content wherever you find your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, you name it, we got it. All right, man, that'll do it for us tonight. That's CJ Baumgartner. I'm Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.